Welcome to the CIO Water Cooler TV. My name's David Savage, and today I'm joined by Daniel Yin from RingCentral. Daniel, what role do you fulfill there?
Hi. So I head up product management and innovation at RingCentral in Europe. Basically, I build things, understand the market, and build cool new technologies for our customers.
That sounds wonderfully simple. I'm sure it's more complicated than that.
Yes, maybe a little.
If people aren't familiar with RingCentral, who are RingCentral?
Well, great question. RingCentral are probably the world's leading communications, cloud communications provider. We build everything from simple telephony and PBX through to exciting and innovative unified communications products like video conferencing, collaboration platforms, and customer engagement.
Now, it's interesting that it's a cloud-based system. It increasingly appears that organisations are moving to cloud. And I'll be perfectly honest, I kind of thought that was old hat. I thought that was like 5 or 6 years ago and that we all got excited about cloud. But there are lots of organisations actually moving to cloud now. Why do you think it's actually now that a lot of that movement appears to be happening?
It's really interesting. I think one of the things we've found is that communications is probably the last of the core business infrastructures that people tend to move to the cloud. I think perhaps slightly different to, say, something like storage or maybe CRMs. Communication relies very heavily on sort of real-time interaction. You can, in a lot of ways, miss 1 or 2 seconds or minutes of data transfer and still have a pretty respectable system, but communications very much needs to be real time. So it is a slightly more complex technology in some ways. The other thing we found is that the shape of businesses has changed, especially in the UK in the last 5 years. So there's a lot more primarily, and one of the things we've seen is cost saving being a factor, but businesses changing their shape, smaller offices, more remote working, and with that you need a communications platform that is capable of dealing with those businesses. So things like remote commuting are very much enabled by strong communications platforms. So we found that to be one of the strong drivers. And I think even with that, we're still a relatively low penetration in the market, something like 10 odd percent. So there's still even with that and with this sort of strong shift, there's a lot of room for growth as well.
It's interesting because I suppose when I think about communications, you might go, oh well, there's tools that people are familiar with. And maybe they are more consumer tools that people go, well, why can't we just use that? I mean, that works, right? But you said at the beginning that you build things. And actually, when you start to take into account, well, hang on a minute, maybe there are hidden disabilities that you can't see with people, and the inclusion point of view, what if someone's hard of hearing or they've got some visual impairment? I suppose you're having to build products that are robust enough to deal with a diverse workforce and actually deliver to make sure that everyone can be involved in the future of work, right?
I completely agree with you. It is, and it's quite challenging to build something that's not only accessible to sort of, should I say, ordinary workers, but everyone, whether it be because of disabilities or remote working sort of scenarios. The other piece that we found is extremely important is global and regional localizations. So while it's pretty acceptable to build consumer applications, it may be in single language, single geography. When you're looking at worldwide businesses, enterprises, very few of them don't have presence globally. You think of either outsourcing use cases, remote or external development teams. You need language localization in those countries. You need to be able to comply with things like telephony regulations there. So it's quite challenging to package all of those things up and still have a single cohesive product. The other thing that you mentioned there, which was quite interesting, was the influence of consumer. And we see a really strong influence in the market from tools like Facebook Messenger, like WhatsApp, which in a lot of ways are becoming quite complete communications platforms in their own right. They're very easy to share files, place phone calls, share messages, and they are very powerful at doing that. We do see a lot of challenges there though with business requirements, business continuity, for example, but probably more importantly, data privacy. So owning your own data as a business is much more important.
Now, one thing that I would be just intrigued to see where you think this may go. We all get very excited about AI, but with natural language processing, actually, communications is an area where AI can have a really big impact now. What developments do you see coming down the line in the next couple of years that you think people will sit back rather from and go, hang on, that's really quite revolutionary?
Yeah, it's a really interesting kind of area with technology generally, I think, and it's certainly one of the big hot topic and buzzword sort of technology areas. What we found very strongly is that the contact centers are kind of the landing ground for good application and sensible application of AI and machine learning technologies. One of the other things we've seen is that it's very glossy, and for a company to talk about AI as part of their strategy. Everyone's doing it, everyone needs a strategy, but it's often quite difficult to translate kind of those ideas into something with real business objectives and deliverables. A contact center is great because it's rife for automation. A lot of very sometimes quite simple tasks like answering a call, directing a call are very easy to automate with AI tech, and so a lot of that exists today. Calling up maybe an insurance claim line and being able to talk to it and say, hey, I want to do this, and being directed in the right place. So a lot of that technology is the sort of thing we power today. What we see is kind of an extension of that across the next few years at the very least. So not only having voice interactive agents, but kind of fully digitized, fully automated AI-based chat agents as well. And one of the journeys we see is simple escalation from and machine learning allowing an automated agent to be able to seamlessly escalate to something that a human could manage, especially kind of in cases where they would need to deal with something very complex, perhaps something that needs emotions or very human sort of thing based emotions to handle, and making that sort of experience simple, seamless. So you take care of the easy first line messaging, but then escalate that quite neatly through to human agents.
It's an exciting area to be pushing boundaries.
Absolutely, yeah.
Look, Daniel, I really appreciate you giving up some time and talking to us today on the channel. I hope you've enjoyed CIO Watercooler today. If you have, why not go to ciowatercooler.co.uk, where you can find loads more videos and content for you to peruse in your own time.